Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this episode of the Painting Industry Partners series, titled Systems Equals Success, we are hosting Chris Moore. Chris is the founder of Elite Business Advisors, a painting business consulting company that helps painting companies with their financials, marketing, and day-to-day operations. Essentially, Chris works with painting contractors one-on-one and through his team to teach them to treat their painting business as a business, not as a job, to allow them to achieve the scale and success that many owners aspire to. Chris will be discussing current trends he sees in the painting industry, as well as how painting company owners can best prepare for an economic downturn. He will also be providing key advice that he has learned from working with some of the most successful painting companies across the country. Finally, Chris will be running us through exactly what Elite Business Advisors does and how to know whether your painting company may benefit from his services. If you want to ask Chris questions related to this podcast or about Elite Business Advisors in general, you can do so in our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast Forum on Facebook and request to join the group, or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Chris questions directly by tagging him with your question. Chris, thanks for coming on the show, man, and running this Painting Industry Partner episode with us.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. It's great to be here, man.
Absolutely, Chris. We are offline. We are good friends. We collaborate quite frequently. So this is an exceptionally fun one for me.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I know you're going to be coming on the Elite Business Advice one here soon too. So I'm glad we can swap opportunities here. So
yeah, absolutely. Little value add back and forth.
Yes, absolutely. I know what you do for your clients is great, and it's you guys pick up the ball where we stop the ball on the marketing side. So I love it. That's what I love the collaboration and the partnership we got.
Yeah, it's super synergistic for our clients. So awesome, man. Well, I guess kind of open up, tell us a little bit about you, kind of how you got started in the industry, Elite Business Advisors, et cetera.
Yeah. I'll give the 12-year spiel in hopefully 60 seconds here. No, so I started out actually in the painting industry when I was in college. I did an internship with a company called Student Painters, very similar to College Works, College Pro, a lot of the other college painting models out there. And fell in love with entrepreneurship and business. I was an entrepreneurship major in college, which I want to clarify right now to everybody listening to this. What I learned in college, I use maybe 0.5% of that nowadays. People are always like, man, I wish I went to college like you did. And I'm like, shut up.
It does not matter.
It doesn't matter. It's mostly been real world and hands-on teaching. But that internship, man, it taught me so much. I owe so much to that company and my mentor, Charlie LeCarry, back in the day, and just understanding business, right? You can't get much more hands-on with an internship than when you're actually out running a painting company, And so I worked with Student Painters. I stayed with them for the additional 2 years after that while I was in college. Graduated, took on a full-time job with them. I was the general manager of Southern Illinois, St. Louis, all the way out to Kansas, all the way over to Evansville, Indiana, and kind of oversaw that whole region. Ran our internship program here locally, recruiting college students, training them, mentoring them, and all that stuff. And so I spent 7 years with Student Painters, had a great experience, man, had so many cool relationships, got to see so many great things with, students that came into the program, right? We would take 18-year-old college students and teach them, how to run a $100,000 business in the summertime, right? So that's what's crazy. If you think about that, it literally over the 3 months of their summer break, they would produce $100,000 or more in paint jobs, in 3 months. And so it's cool seeing a lot of kids that maybe never had a job in high school. They were a 2 or 3 sport athlete, right? Just good students that just came into our program, man, and just tore it up, right? So, so after doing that for about 7 years, a lot of us kind of started getting burned out a little bit. For all the great kids that we got to coach and mentor, there was 5 fires that we always had to put out, right? As you can imagine, 18-year-olds painting houses. And so, it was kind of time to move. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I'm
Yeah.
actually surprised the company it survived, and all of
Yeah.
them have, right, for the most part. So, but no, so it was just kind of time to move on, and I knew what I wanted to do again with the coaching and the mentoring. I coached high school hockey for my local high school where I went to, and so I always had a passion for like coaching and mentoring and helping people like reach their potential, right? And I knew what I'm doing now is what I wanted to do, but at age, I guess 25, 26, I wasn't ready to make that leap yet, right? Like it was kind of a quick decision. We were all like, hey, before we start recruiting too much this year, like I think it's time for us to like call it quits. And so I'll never forget, like, my wife gets home from work. We've been married for I think like a year, right around a year or so. And she gets home from work and I was like, hey, we need to talk. And she was like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, I don't have a job anymore. Like we all just kind of quit. And she was like, oh, and we had been talking about it, so it wasn't totally out of left field. But she's like, well,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? And I'm like, well, Christina, I was like, I know how to run a painting business, right? Like I always ran like a small business every year in addition to mentoring all the college students and stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna go do that for now, right? So I started Elite Painting, ran that for 4 years, and started Elite Business Advisors in March of 2018. And ran that alongside my painting company for 2 years as I could start building this, right? Because I knew that I
Yeah.
knew how to coach and mentor people, right? But I didn't know how to systematize it. I didn't know how to structure it. I didn't know how to monetize it, right? There was so much I had to learn. And so I'm super glad that I had that 2 year gap, even though life was freaking nuts trying to run two businesses at one time.
Can't even imagine.
So anyways, long story short, beginning of 2020, made the full time switch to Elite Business Advisors. And I pick up a paintbrush maybe twice a year at this point for friends or family to do a fun little project. And that's about my involvement on the paint side of it as much as the business side. So
Yeah.
I
I
said
love that,
60
man.
seconds. That was probably like 180 to 300 seconds, but
That's all right.
it kind of helps set the tone. It helps people get a good understanding
It
of the
definitely
background, right?
does. Yeah, there's no time limit on that intro. So I mean, dang, man. So that's what, over a decade now that you've been
Yeah,
basically doing systems?
yeah. So I mean, and that was the cool thing, right? Is I mean, being a 19-year-old college student, it's like I got ingrained in systems right away,
Yeah.
and understanding like there's systems in place for a reason. And I think especially when you look at like a company like Student Painters, right? I mean, every year we would have some students like myself that would stay with us and kind of grow in the company. But I mean, every year you're looking for a fresh. I mean, here in Missouri, we'd look for a fresh 50 to 60 college students to go run a business, right? So you have to have the systems in place to coach them and train them and mentor them in order to go run a successful business, right? If every year we were trying to train people from scratch how to do an estimate on a paint job that had no clue how to paint, had no clue about anything, and we didn't have a system in place for that, the company would have been out of business way before I even got into it, right? So,
Yeah.
so really seeing the systems in that, and obviously now we've kind of taken a lot of that and kind of how can we help our clients through that by putting the right systems in place for their business.
Yeah. So when you say you brought in 50 to 60 college students each summer and taught
Yeah,
them how to run a painting business, what was their role? What were they doing exactly?
yeah. So they were called branch managers, and honestly, their role was to do everything a painting business owner does, right? So we had an office that took care of all the legal stuff, running payroll, depositing the checks, like that type of stuff. They would put the profit and loss statement together for each branch manager. So we had an office that was kind of a central hub that would be kind of a call center, would provide some administrative help, I guess. But when it came down to the college students, man, I mean, they would go out, they would market their business, right? They had flyers, they had business cards, they would go out and market their business, they would sell the paint jobs, do the estimate, schedule everything for the summertime. They were recruiting their employees, their painters. They were overseeing production of the projects, making sure they were financially viable. So I mean, it was everything a business owner does outside of some of the like legal administrative stuff that obviously we didn't want their hands to be in. But yeah, man, it was everything. It was everything start to finish, just like any painting contractor listening to this is going out doing for their business.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of opening fresh wounds for some people and kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
not rubbing salt in, but
yeah.
people can definitely understand that pain because you
Oh
just
man,
listed
it's
three or four totally different positions really in an
yep,
established company that the
yep,
small owner is doing all of them.
yep, exactly. And that's what most of our branch managers, would run a crew of about 3 to 4 people. But again, the ones that were doing 100,000 plus, I mean, they had 8 to 10 painters, right? One of my good friends still to this day, Joe Shuett, he was one of our top guys here in Missouri over those few years. I think he did about 110,000 his second year with us, and he had 8 painters. He had 2 crews of 4 just going nonstop. And I know some guys had 15 employees, right? So it was a cool internship because you got to, what you got out of it was what you put into it, right? If you wanted to go and say, hey, I want to make, 50 grand this summer, which happened. Like some college students would do 200
That's
grand in work
insane.
and make 40 to 50 grand. I mean, we had the internship set up to where, it was a profit. Like they got the profit on their
Yeah.
jobs after, the administrative costs and everything. Like it was crazy, man. It was crazy to see. I don't know what the record's currently at. It was around 180,000, 180 to 200,000. I think the last year I was with them was where the record stood, but I think it's in the low 200s now at this point. So,
Yeah. So I just, because this sounds kind of crazy to me. So I want to make sure I understand, because obviously, we work with companies across the country. I'm talking to painting company owners constantly. And you're telling me that you have people come in, work for 3 months, so just a summer, and they're basically doing 100 grand. Which if you run rate that out, so if you multiply it by 4,
it's 400 grand.
That's 400 grand for just brand new, right? So they're literally on the first 3 months, which technically, it's summer, fine. But technically, it really would be your slowest because you don't really have any traction whatsoever. They're able to ramp up to almost $500,000 company immediately.
Yep, exactly. And so, and just to clarify too, like we would always start marketing in about February to March. So they would have like a 3-month runway during the springtime while they were still. But I mean, again, they're in college, right? Some kids are, only going home on the weekends, right? Like they might be at U of I, University of Illinois for school, and they might be living here in St. Louis in the summertime. So they'd be driving back home every weekend to start building their business. Some students lived in the territory, but I mean, they're still in college full-time students in the springtime. But so we would start doing the marketing and sales portion. We didn't start actually any of the production until summertime. But still, I mean, the fact that they were able to do that, like you said, literally from scratch. And again, not every student did $100,000, right? There was plenty that would do 20 or 30,000 in a year, still get a great experience out of it, still make, some decent amount of money and stuff. So it wasn't like every student that came in did 100,000, right? There was definitely the outliers, the 80-20 rule. But yeah, you're exactly right. Literally from nothing, just go out and do this.
Yeah. So I want to do a little plug. Marketing is a leading indicator of success. Anyone who's listening is a leading indicator of success. They didn't start marketing the day they needed the jobs. They started marketing beforehand, right? That's how marketing works.
Exactly.
So I want to also comment on that. I think it's pretty clear, but just to make it super crystal clear, the way that you find that level of success, the way that someone can come in, whether an outlier or not, or the way that pretty much everyone can do at least reasonably well, is you have systems. They don't come in and just flounder, which is what a lot of painting company owners are struggling with, this kind of flounder. And so I want to, eventually we are going to dive into your program, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
What you offer, but I'm going to put you on the back burner, Chris, because we're going to.
That's fine. I'm good at that.
You're in the vendor series, you're in the industry partner series, so people know that they're going to learn about what you do. But I want to focus on the industry and your knowledge first.
For sure. So no, absolutely. That's what I'm here for.
100%. So you working with all of these, these college students and just being in this systems and processes for painting, the painting industry for over a decade. What are some of, two-part question. Number one, what are some of the most important systems and processes that you see, right, to put in place first? And number two, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you constantly see?
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. All right. So I'm going to go off on number one, and you're probably going to have to remind me what the second part of this was. So write it down if you haven't.
Got it.
So number one, the systems that you need in place, man. So the one area we always focus on with our clients, even, now to this day, right? We don't just work with college students anymore. But, from back then and even today is you got to be financially stable, right? Nothing matters if you're running at a loss. So having the job costing, having the financial systems in place. If anybody's listened to our podcast or seen us at PCA Expo or anything, you already know the two things I'm going to tell you. You need to put money aside for taxes to pay your taxes, right? 5 to 10% of your revenue needs to go in a separate account. Don't touch it unless you're making estimated tax payments or your year-end tax bill. And then the other one with that is deposits, right? Every time you get a deposit for a job, put it aside in an account until that job starts. So those are just like the three basic financial systems we want people to have in place. Is job costing out your project so you get that real-time data, understanding what your monthly cash flow is, and then having the tax and the deposit, systems. So financial systems is number one. Because again, like I said, if you if you're struggling, if you're 5 years behind on your tax bill to the IRS, like it's going to be really hard for you to get ahead. And I hope I didn't just put salt in a couple more wounds there in that, but it's true, right? Like you got to get all those things cleaned up and taken care of. Because again, if you grow your business to $1 million, but it's not profitable, it's just going to crumble that much harder, right? That's what we always tell people. That's why we start with the financials, because it's the fundamental foundational principle. The other one I think is a big one is your estimating system, right? Like I mentioned earlier with student painters, we couldn't teach 18-year-old college students that have never even held a paintbrush how to go do an estimate on a paint job without a system in place. And I think it's still true to this day, right? I think that's the number one place where a lot of business owners, a lot of painting contractors doubt themselves. They come up with a price, and then I'll see them knock like $400 off because they just feel like it's too high. And I'm like, why? If you have concrete data and you have a number system in place to say, hey, a bedroom, we budget this many hours for 2 coats on the walls, this many hours for the ceiling, whatever, the price is the price then, right? Like you shouldn't be playing this guessing game of, I feel like that's too high or, whatever. So, so estimating system, I think it's a great idea. I would say the other two big pieces off the top of my head here is to have a recruiting system in place, right? Labor is such a hot topic still to this day in the industry. It's going to be for a while. Let's just get used to that. Having a good system in place. The companies that I see, they don't complain about recruiting because they don't have massive issues with recruiting, or the ones that have a system in place, right? They have a system to market for employees. I'm going to let that sink in for a second. People actually market for employees, right? Recruiting is not a reactive game; it's a proactive game. So they have a good, marketing system for generating interest. They have a good interview process. They have a good system in place to filter through the candidates and then hire the right people. And then on the flip side of that, they have the right system in place to onboard that person and train them, right? A lot of people bring in employees that maybe don't have painting experience, so they have the system in place to be able to train them from no painting skill to being a crew leader, production manager, estimator down the road, and having that. And then the last one I would say, and you're going to love this one, I saved it for last for a reason, a marketing system, right? Having a freaking marketing system, having a plan, having systems in place, right? Having, automated things to get Google reviews, like all the things that go into marketing, right? Social media postings, blog postings, anything and everything you can think of. Having that system in place, a system so people understand this, right? A system is just something you have in place to make your business run automatically like clockwork. Again, every time you deposit a check, you just transfer 10% over to this other account. Some banks you can automate it. Sometimes you still have to manually do it, but the system is every time this happens, right? Every time X happens, you do Y. And so I don't want people to get like crazy about it, like, oh, what's a marketing system? No, it's just a system is making sure that you're executing on the game plan that you need to do, even in times of doubt.
Yeah. The way I kind of explain it to people is a system is if you have repeatable tasks, if things need to happen, then you shouldn't be winging it. You shouldn't be redoing it. If there's a software that you can use, even if you can set up systems, something in like Google Sheets, right? Or Excel, just something you can hire an admin person to run through it. Whatever is a repeatable task, go ahead and make it easily repeatable. Don't keep doing it yourself.
Yep. Look into things like Zapier or Zapier. I never know how to say that one. But, just things that you can automate processes too. There's a lot of good tools out there. Yeah. A lot of people were like, the word system, I think, is almost scary to some people. Yeah. And it's really not. I have a system down every night before I go to bed. I make sure the coffee pot's got water in it. Everything's ready to go. Dog goes outside. Like, that's a system to me, right? Some people are like, wow, Chris, you're crazy. It's like, no, I just have a system that I know I do this and then I do this and I do this and then we go to bed. So I never have to worry about, did that get done? Right. Yeah. So it's those routine different things too, and personal life, business and everything else.
Yep. Don't recreate the wheel with every task every day.
Yep. 100%.
All right. So just a recap. So your most important systems, number one, you have financial systems, right? Yep. So putting that in place, making sure your job costing, so you're actually profitable, making sure that you have money set aside 5 to 10% for your taxes, and then making sure you are, what was the last part?
Deposits. You're putting
aside your deposits when you receive a deposit, right? Exactly. Number two is your estimating system. Don't go by feeling, kind of ties in with your job costing. The price is the price. Yep. Have a system. Exactly. There's no feel about it, right? It's data. Number three is a recruiting system. So be actively recruiting. This has been a theme over and over from a lot of guests, is have a pipeline of potential employees or subcontractors, right? Have that pipeline. And then you said, I'll also have a system to onboard them, right? So have a pipeline to hire them and a system to onboard them. And that way you're not left scrambling, because what's going to happen is you're, number one, going to hire the wrong person because you need someone immediately. Again, marketing, whether it's for projects or for employees, is a leading indicator of success. When you're marketing already, you can choose the right person. And then number two, if you don't onboard them correctly, even if you have the right person, you're setting them up for failure. You're not doing
absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things I see is most people, they have a recruiting system to hire the right people, but then they have no process to train them, right? So it doesn't matter how good an employee is, they're only going to be as good as the expectation you set with them moving forward, right? So 100%. That's why it's a two-part. Exactly. It's a two-part system, in my opinion.
Yep. And I mean, I kind of like to use the example of McDonald's. Jason Phillips uses the easy oven example. You know, a 5-year-old can make something. I mean, it's if your systems are that good, you can generally plug people in. And then 4 is a marketing system. So my favorite. But the same as a marketing system for employees. You know, you need to have a long-term marketing system. We work with our painting partners on a long-term brand equity basis, so the leads are coming to them, so they're not in this rat race that everyone, generally everyone else is in the painting contractor space. Okay,
you nailed it.
So that's super helpful, Chris. I appreciate that. Now moving on to the second part of the question, which is pretty closely related to that first one. Those are the top systems that you prioritize. What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen repeatedly in the industry?
So it's funny is, as we just talked about this, I'll kind of echo some of the things we just went through. You know, one is people don't job cost, right? You know, I have people reach out and they go, hey, I've been listening to your podcast for a year. I know I need to be doing this and I'm still not doing it. I'm like, hey, that's fine, right? Like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right?
Do it now.
So, you know, so I'm like, it's okay. But just, man, I love, we did an episode with Nick Slodick earlier this year. And Nick said
does he job cost? Does he ever talk about anything like that?
Yeah, I think he does when he feels like it.
It's like a new thing for him, though, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right, cool. He's all feelings. No, it's not data plus
exactly.
Feelings.
It's all feelings. All feelings, cool. I love that. But no, I mean, he goes, job costing leads you down a path of 15 more questions for your business. And I love that, because it's so true, right? You're going to job cost and something's going to be off, right? When you know what you're looking for, when you know that your margin should be, you know, 40% for labor, including employer taxes, no more than 45%. When you know your material margin should be 8 to 12%, no more than 15, like you can start to identify the problems when you look at these things, right? When you know your revenue per hour should be, you know, 55 to 65 or north, right? Depending on your business and some stuff. Like when you know what you're looking for, job costing you start asking yourself questions, right? What happened, right? The first one is, was this a production issue or was this an estimating issue, right? Because you're going to look at this and you're going to say, and you're not just looking at the numbers, you're looking at the hours, right? So, you know, estimating and say, hey, we think this job's going to take us 80 hours. And then the production hours come back in at 100, right? So was that a production issue or did you not estimate it properly? Did you run into like some random unforeseen thing that was out of your control that obviously happens out there in the world? Okay, then that's just an outlier. You move on from it. If it's like, man, no, that was an easy project. They didn't run into any big issues. Wow, okay, well, that's definitely a production issue, right? So you start analyzing these things and asking yourself. And so, you know, a lot of people come to me, they're like, hey, I really need to create a good estimating system, right? The other thing we talked about. And I'm like, okay, great. Do you job cost? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, we got to start there to understand where your estimating is at, right? And so I think that's a big one, is just the job costing, that it ties into so much of your business. You know, so I think that's one. Another one of the financial topic I mentioned earlier about taxes and deposits. I think those are two things that are huge for people, is just being proactive. You know, I see a lot of people, unfortunately, spend the deposits just in with the cash flow of the business to keep going. And it becomes a vicious cycle, right? Because really what it's saying is your cash flow isn't good. So you're masking the problem by taking deposits for future jobs and just shoving into there to solve it, right? Yeah. And at some point, if you ever shut your company down, the last 10 jobs you collect, you're only collecting 50%. You don't have the extra coming in, and like you're really kind of in a tight spot. So it takes time. You know, usually most clients, depending on the size of their company, within a year, they can get to a spot where they have all their deposits set aside for future projects. They can kind of get caught up, you know, if they can be smart about things. So a year sometimes it takes, but again, start the process today on that, slowly but surely, what you can afford. Um, I think the other one, that I'll piggyback on, that I see a lot of, which ties into the cash flow thing I just mentioned, is not understanding like the monthly cash flow of the business, right? And I'm not talking about the QuickBooks report that you can pull if you use QuickBooks or anything like that. I'm talking like, okay, how much did you guys produce work wise, right? What was your production numbers? You job costed out, and then taking out your overhead, for your business, right? All your monthly expenses that's not tied to labor materials. How much money did you take out of the business as an owner, right? I feel a lot of people sometimes will overpay themselves because they don't job cost. They don't know how much money they're making, and they just take money out, and all of a sudden they can't figure out where the money's going, right? So I think, that's one thing we try to go through with our clients, is understanding like, what is that monthly cash flow number of the business? And is it growing over time, right? Is it
Yeah.
consistent over time? And just understanding that, because again, when you factor in the overhead, you factor in the meals at Panera, the coffee at Starbucks, all the little things, your insurance, your workers' comp, everything else. How much money did your company make that month, right? So I think those are like some of the biggest financial mistakes. And then, like I said, really on the recruiting side, just the recruiting and having a training system, especially if you're looking for new painters, I think that's a big stumbling block that I see a lot of people have. Not having SOPs, I think that ties into it, right? Standard operating procedures, which is a system that we can talk about on the production side of things. When you have the SOPs, it makes the training and the onboarding easier, right? So I always tell people, start number one with the SOPs, get your SOPs down, and then build a training program around those SOPs to really set people up for success.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and I want to dive into this SOPs in a second. One of the things you said that was really interesting was, if you have a job that runs over budget, right, and you didn't get the profit margin you wanted out of it, I think it's so easy to just immediately blame production, right? And they screwed up. They didn't do it right. And I think this, how you approach this, right? Like, okay, was it an estimating thing, or was it, because it very well may have been a production fault? Number one, if you're kind of just starting this process, then you're going to have to kind of look at the project, compare it to past projects. And what does that look like? If you're seeing this as a common theme, then you have a fundamental business issue here, either on the estimating or the production side. And then number two, this approach that you're taking, this really analytical approach that doesn't just assume things, then that needs to be applied to everything in your business. If you hire someone, and whether it's for an estimator role, project manager role, administrative assistant, whatever that person is, a painter, if you hire them and you feel like they are not performing, is it because of who they are, because they're just not the right person, or is it because of who your business is, because you didn't create an opportunity? If that's a theme, are you just bad at finding good people, or maybe you don't actually have an onboarding system? So looking at everything, analyzing everything, don't just immediately assume you know the answer.
Yep. I got to share this story with you. So we've got a client here, and he made a comment one time, and he's a very direct person, right? Like I know with our clients who we have to sugarcoat, and then the ones that just need to like hear it, right? And he called me, and he's like, man, I can't figure out why my employees like don't take their jobs seriously. And I was like, I kind of, for a second, I kind of prayed. I'm like, okay, how should I answer this, right? And I was like, here's the reason. I said, it's because you don't take your own business seriously. And I won't say his name because I don't want to call him out on here. But I said, it's because you don't take your own business seriously. And he hung up on me, and then he called me back 30 minutes later, and he's like, you're right, man, I needed to hear that. And it was exactly that, right? He didn't have the recruiting system. He didn't have an expectations. He didn't have a training program. His training program was, hey, show up on Monday and kind of work alongside me, and I'll just show you stuff, right? That was the training program, and he couldn't figure out why people weren't taking it seriously. He didn't set goals with them. And so we worked through a lot of that stuff, right? And so, sometimes you got to hear those hard things, right? I'm delicate with when we coach people. I won't be direct with everybody unless I know you need it. But it's one of those things, if you don't take your business seriously, if you don't set the expectations, right? I always say, think back to every job you had. If they set good expectations with you, you probably performed much better at that job than if they were just like, hey, I was related. I worked at Red Robin when I was in college before I started with Student Painters as a server. They told us every single thing. Hey, within 2 minutes of the guest sitting down, you should greet them and get their drinks, right? Within 60 seconds of the last guest taking the first bite of their meal, you should go check in on. Like, they told us every single thing to a T. So it was really easy for me to just know, hey, this is what I need to go do.
Yeah.
Right. If they were just like, hey, go serve tables, I probably would have never made any money because I would have been a terrible server and got terrible tips. Right. So I think it's the same thing with the painting industry. I'm like, set the expectations with people. Let them know that, hey, it's okay if you're, taking 6 hours to paint a bedroom right now, but I want you to get that down to 4 hours within 60 to 90 days. Just set the expectation with them, right? So they have something to shoot for. And the good employees will gravitate towards that. The bad ones will eventually weed themselves out because they never progress. But I think, just having that expectation and that process in place with people. I see a lot of people get tripped up on that, right? It's, hey, great, you can fog a mirror, show up on the job site Monday, and Billy over there is going to teach you how to paint, right? Well, Billy's probably not a good painter. You have a painter named Billy. I'm not calling him out, but random person may not be the way you want them to understand how to paint, right? How you want to do a job site. It's kind of the telephone game. If the seventh painter down the line is teaching the new guy how to paint, it's probably very much off from your process if you don't have a system in place.
And just because Billy can paint doesn't mean he can teach how to paint very well.
Bingo.
He might not be the right person. So I want to call out one quick thing there. Which I think is important, right? That was a hard decision that you made in that story that you just shared, where you were, you're not a mean guy. If you were a mean guy, we wouldn't be friends. But
exactly.
You said something pretty direct, pretty blunt, and got hung up on by one of your clients. You very well could have lost that client, right? And because you were too mean, but you realized how he, his personality and kind of what resonates with him, and you decided to take that risk to help him. Right. And 30 minutes, you didn't know whether you still had him as a client. So I think that speaks volumes to kind of how you operate, and the fact that you're not like that necessarily with everyone, but you're willing to do what it takes to help your clients succeed. So I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. And whenever I started this company, it's, one of my big kind of core values was, we're always going to do what's in the best interest of the clients, right? Yep. Whether they like it or not, whether we have to, be direct with them. I don't love being direct, right? Like, I don't love having to be that, because it can come off being a jerk at times. And thankfully, we try to build a relationship.
Before we started recording, you told me I'm an idiot, but I just was like, hey, I need to stop being such an idiot. I mean, it helped.
Yeah, exactly. See, exactly. I'm glad this worked out. So
fixed it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. But no, it is true. I mean, again, those aren't the fun conversations to have, but the clients that really just need to hear some of those things, right? Yeah. And, even on our podcast, I'll say things and I'm like, I probably just stepped on somebody's toes, but like, if you're offended, it's probably because you needed to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just here to help you. Right. Like, again, that's my goal. I want to see everybody reach their full potential. That's what I told you. I loved coaching high school hockey. I loved what I did with student painters. Like, I see so many people in this client, and for example, and he has so much potential if we can get him off the job site and continue treating his business more like a business, right? Yeah. Like, he's such a craft person. He's so good at fine finishes. He's got so many like passions and ambitions when it comes to the quality of the product they do. It's just, we're trying to work through them on the business side of it, right? And so it's, when you see people with potential, man, you want to see them succeed. You almost take it personally if they don't.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things. Sometimes I want their success more for them than they do, right? And
because it's your business. If they're not succeeding, you're not succeeding.
Right, exactly. And I'm not even talking from a financial component. I see you and I see what you're capable of, and I just want you to live up to it, right? Yeah. So it's a tough thing to navigate sometimes, and a lot of times what really helps in my perspective, and so for anybody else out there in this ballpark, when they give me permission and they say, I want you to be direct and blunt with me because it's what I need, that for me allows me to have those tough conversations and risk getting hung up on and risk losing a client when I know that's what they really want from me. It makes it a lot easier to do that because I don't feel like I'm being a jerk. I feel like I'm doing exactly what they're wanting me to do in that situation, right? So anybody else out there that's a coach or anything, I think that's a important point to have.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And another comment you made, again, which could be easily, I think, overlooked, is to have patience, right? So don't expect people to come in and don't expect them to be exactly where you need them to be. That needs to be part of your onboarding process. The 69 days. Hey, if you come in and it takes you 6 hours, I'm a big believer in hiring for the person, not the skill set. So if you 100%. Come in and you haven't painted for a decade, but you're the right person, you're hungry to learn, you're ethical, you match up with our core values, then if it takes you 6 hours, 50% longer to paint that bedroom, fine. Because I hired you, because you're a fast learner, you're hungry, you want to grow, in 60 to 90 days, you need to be here.
100%, right? And setting that expectation with them is the key to that whole process.
So I want to touch base on the the SOP. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, standard operating procedure, boy, I don't even know where to start with that. Where do they start?
Right. Somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. That's a great advice, because otherwise you get overwhelmed.
Best advice. Exactly.
It
right.
is the best advice.
We just filmed a segment with something for PTA coming out later, early next year, about business plans. Right. It's the same thing. I mean, just start somewhere. Right. Because business plans and SOPs are the two things that they paralyze people because of what the stereotype of them are. Like, oh, I got to create this whole 58-step thing of SOPs. Like, no, you just need to start somewhere. Right. And so for me, an SOP should include everything from the moment your painters show up at a job site, right? They put a lawn sign out in front of the yard. They greet the customer. They get there 15 minutes early. They greet the customer, right? It should include even those things, right? And then as you're wrapping the job up, what is the closeout process, right? An hour before you're done, grab the customer, start doing the walkthrough. Make sure they have an invoice, whether it's from your office or, whatever. And so it just needs to include everything, right? And then obviously there's the painting process, which is kind of the most important, but don't forget about the other things before and after. But just start documenting things, right? And if you really don't know, go do a bedroom by yourself. And when you go there and you see how you start doing things, just start making notes, right? And all it really needs to be is a 1-page-ish document in step 1 through 37 or whatever, right? You should have one for walls, one's for walls and ceilings, one's for wall, ceiling, and trim. Then obviously all the exterior stuff too. So, I mean, there's going to be a handful of different SOPs. There isn't one SOP, right? Because the order you might do a bedroom is going to depend on if you're doing the walls and the ceilings, because of dry time and cutting in against different colors. So, but just start somewhere. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, get that ball rolling. And now I want to touch base with you on, throughout the last year. Obviously, it's been a crazy few years. Yeah. What trends are you seeing? We've talked about the industry on some other podcasts, professionalizing, young talent coming in. Jason Parrish is big on that. And what trends are you seeing with your clients, and how can painting company owners prepare for a potentially extended economic downturn moving forward here?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I'm going to give 2 quick thoughts on that. I think one, I think knowing that a lot of people are working on professionalizing their business should scare the ones that aren't. And I don't want to use a scare tactic or anything crazy.
It's true,
but I think it's true.
Industry's going to change.
I'm seeing a lot of, there's the generation of people that are retiring from there that are kind of the old school way. There's a middle gap that is adapting to technology and systems and scaling and looking for people like you and ourselves to help them. And then there's a lot of young people coming in that have that business mind that will, I don't want to say take over the industry, but that's going to be your competition, right? And so there's a lot of very sharp younger people getting into the industry. And so that's one trend I see is that's a big one. I think another thing, you mentioned the potential economic recession, and I think it's safe to say nobody knows, are we in it yet? How bad is it? How long it's going to last? We're not going to know probably even until we're on the other side of it. But I will say this. One, now is not a great time to take on massive risk, right? To go and take out a huge loan for a building you don't really need yet and do all these things just to hope that you're going to grow your business. I think now is a time to be realistic and to focus on being a little bit on the lean side in case things do slow down. Really, most of our clients, and I can't speak for the industry as a whole, but most of our clients really haven't seen any impact on this yet, right? People are still out at restaurants. People are still buying stuff. Nothing's really changing yet. Now, I think at some point some things will change, and I don't know what it is, and again, to what extent and what industries are going to be most impacted by it. But I think we just need to be prepared that things could slow down, but also operate as if they're not, right? Don't live in fear, I guess is what I want to say with it. Don't live in fear, but be realistic to the situation, to be a little more on the lean side, and maybe don't take on a huge risk with anything right now.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Don't live in fear, right? Abundance mindset, but accepting the reality that we do live in uncertainty, and no one can predict the future. The talking heads on the news don't know. If they say, hey, the world is crumbling, Chicken Little, doesn't mean that they're right.
Right. Exactly. Right. It's all an opinion. So yeah, I mean, don't live in fear on it, but at the same time, now's not the time to go, quadruple your office size and quadruple your monthly thing. If you're not in a spot where you can really afford that. So
yeah, and office size, things like that are overhead expenses, right? So things that are more you can kind of vary up and down. I mean, I never I'm never a proponent of cutting out marketing. And one of the things Jason Paris has told me recently in a kind of funny, kind of direct way, which is that we finally are relevant now because people didn't need us for the past 10 years. But when you move into an economic downturn, like you're saying, if you don't professionalize, you will be left behind. If you don't market, that kind of receiving work is not going to go to you.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Because then I always say the worst business decisions get made out of times of desperation. Yeah. And I think that it's typically when you're within 2 weeks of running out of work or a week of running out of work, and you're just trying to get jobs to stay busy, and you're cutting costs, you're doing different things, that's when you're making bad business decisions, because then you lower your prices 20% just to get a job on the schedule. If you do that one time because you had a random cancellation, cool. If that's like your new norm, because you don't have enough leads coming in to sell at the quality and the level you want, right? Like that's typically when I see people reducing their prices, because they don't have enough leads coming in to have that abundance mentality. They're just happy to get 3 phone calls a week, and they're trying to sell all 3 of them at whatever price they can to stay moving, right? And so, I agree. I mean, marketing is a huge piece of that as we're moving, forward with some of this. It's making sure you've got a steady flow of leads, right? When I mentioned earlier about, kind of our synergies and working together, we preach a lot about the organic marketing, the relationship marketing. What are the things you do internally with your previous happy, satisfied client to garner more referrals, repeat business, that sort of stuff, right? And so I love that, that only will propel you so far in your business. And then you need a professional like yourself to really continue to run the ball forward. But the whole goal of what we do with that, and the whole goal of what you do with them, is we want to build a steady pipeline of leads, right? I didn't market at all the last 2 years I had Elite Painting, because we had enough organic stuff coming in that we'd have 15 to 20 leads coming in every month, and we were selling enough work to, get through at the time and stuff. So, it really is about building that pipeline of leads and having that system in place, whether it's, with what you guys do on the online presence, whether it's, relationship marketing. I think a good hybrid of having both is important, right? You don't want to go all one or all the other. I think, having the stuff in place with what you can do to help people, and the systems in place internally to garner those referrals from repeat customers. I think that's a happy balance that will really get people pretty far, especially if things do slow down in the economy.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note, so referrals, repeat business, right? You have these past customers, and you reach out to them to either repeat or referral. Those are your best leads ever. Those are the leads 100%. That you should be closing, assuming you run a good company. You should be closing for high profit margins. You should be closing consistently. You should never stop doing that. Where we really specialize is when if you want to grow, if you don't want to take 20 years to get to the size of some of these painting companies, then you have to get what's called a cold audience. You have to get people that are not a direct referral or have not already worked with you. You need to get them to know, like, and trust you and book with you for high profit margins. So those are kind of the two different types of marketing, but you should always be doing both. I want to dive, Chris, kind of into what you do. So you obviously have incredible industry expertise. You have a lot of experience, and you've thrown out some impressive statistics of what these college kids with no experience were able to do, with the right system. So how did you roll that into Elite Business Advisors? What do you guys offer? Who are you for?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our main target audience is, we really focus on helping people that are less than like 1.5 get up to,
under 1.5 million annual revenue.
Okay. And annual revenue. So that's our specialty, right? And so we're kind of building out, we've been building out our team of advisors here the last 6 months. We're putting people in place to kind of help take beyond that in the near future. But right now, I mean, if you're, solo operator, 1, 2, 3, 4 employees, 7 to 10 employees, right? It's getting over that hump of 1 million, right? And getting beyond that to start treating your business like a business, right? So whether you're brand new to the industry or very small, we're here to help you, all the way up to somebody that's been in business for 20 years that has 4 to 6 employees that's just ready for, again, that change, right? To treat their business really like a business more than just a job. So, I mean, that's kind of the target people we're looking for. Again, not to say we can't work with larger companies. We have people in place that can do that, right? One of our advisors, they built a $5 million painting company up in the Northeast, right? So they've got some proof of concept on how to take a business to that next step. So we're kind of building out that next phase. But yeah, I mean, we really took kind of the system thinking behind what we did with student painters, and kind of were able to put that in place with our clients, right? So we've got a program called the Elite Business Academy. that is kind of the jumpstart program that people go through here with our business, right? And something we just recently, revamped and relaunched. And so, with that, you get all the resources we have, Google Sheets, all the documents you really need to run your business, right? Templates for job descriptions, the apprenticeship path you can lay out again for that onboarding process and the training systems, like all the resources come with it. We have a whole checklist of things that we go through to make sure that you kind of have your business professionalized, if you will, right? So we've got a whole section on business planning, like what is your 3-year plan? What's your 1-year plan? Do you have core values? Do you have a mission statement, right? All the way through the financials, making sure your job costing, making sure you're looking at your monthly cash flow. If you have debt, how can we kind of get that paid off over time and systems in place? So we have a whole checklist in every area of your business, right? Recruiting, marketing, SOPs, production. We have a whole checklist that we want our clients to run through over those at least first. It's kind of set up to be a 6 to 9 month program. Some people may take a year to do it. Some people may knock it out in 4 to 6 months. But we kind of want to run through that whole checklist. And that's really when people kind of go through that, we call them, graduates of the Elite Business Academy. And really just that shows that they've got all the pieces in place. They're treating their business like a professional company, right? We continue to advise with them afterwards. All of our clients, we do, typically twice a month meetings with us. They also get access to a once a month mastermind group with other business owners, similar size and mindset. So that's all part of the package with them. And so, that's, again, we do the one-on-one advising. We've got the peer-to-peer group facilitation that we do with them, a lot of the resources, and just kind of, redone our systems and structure to make sure we're helping them, right? And like, so once we get through that initial, kind of launch pad phase, then we kind of continue working with them on a monthly basis just to take it to the next step, right? There's always things to change and improve on. So,
yeah. So you guys, it's almost like this accelerator program of sorts where you're going to get everything dialed in. And then as they kind of graduate out of that, which typically will take between 6 to 9 months, you're gonna work one-on-one with them to make sure everything's crafted personally for their business.
Yep, exactly.
Is there a minimum revenue threshold they should be at before approaching you?
Nope, not really. We have a couple clients that are brand new or solo operator, kind of restarting their business over to start growing with employees. They just want to do it, as they've said in their words, the right way this time.
That was what was in my head.
I know, right? I'm like, hey, they've said it.
We'll do it the right way.
I don't feel bad saying that. Again, I'm not using names, but so no, we have people that all the way down there, right? And again, we try to customize our plans. We have a pretty set structure and fee for the academy and everything that we run our clients through. But we try to work with them, right? We do have a couple of clients that just meet with us once a month. So then obviously they pay half the cost of what the twice a month, main plan is, just because they might be smaller. And so for them, it might actually take them 12 to 18 months to get there, right? But just, so we try to work with their budget as much as we can. Because again, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, we want to be able to help people, right? So any way that we can make sure that we can add value to people and try to work with them, right? We don't negotiate our prices necessarily, but we'll kind of negotiate how we can structure some of the things. That's the biggest thing, and then we're continuing to add our services here over time as we grow. Like I said, we have other advisors that work with some of our clients. It's not just myself. We've got a great team of advisors. Everybody has painting industry knowledge. So either they've ran a painting company. Actually, all of them have ran a painting business at this point that are advisors with us. So they have the industry specific knowledge. We have a bookkeeper and payroll person on staff for any of our clients that need those services, right? Different things. So we're kind of growing our resources out there. We're never going to get into what you do. I want to make that very clear because that's not our area of focus. But like I said, we have people in place that can kind of help facilitate people in other areas aside from just the day-to-day advising.
Yeah, I appreciate that full explanation, Chris. And I want to remind all of our listeners that this is a pre-approved painting industry partner series. So I do not take on just anyone. We only take on the best of the best here. So Chris being here means that I've personally vetted him. Painter Marketing Pros has vetted him. We account for him, and we recommend him without reservation.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Is there anything else? Appreciate you sharing all your expertise, what you're seeing working, how painting companies can prepare. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap this up?
No, man, I think we really covered a lot of different stuff today. Like I said, I appreciate you guys having us. Obviously, if people have questions, like you said, get connected with us on the Painter Marketing Mastermind Forum on Facebook. You can reach out to us through our website, www.elitebusinessadvising.com, or shoot me an email, chris@elitebusinessadvising.com. I'm happy to help. We do free business analysis meetings with all of our clients, right? So if something we said in this episode, especially these last few minutes, hits home and you just want to chat with us, hey, what does it look like to work with you guys? Have a little bit more of a personalized conversation. We do free 30-minute, analysis meetings just to kind of get to know you, get to know what your goals are, where you're at now, and see if it might be a good fit for both of us and let you make that decision. So no, like I said, I really appreciate you, having me on. Always happy to get on and share. Again, I love working with you, love working alongside you with the PCA and everything. I think at the end of the day, it's pretty cool. I've talked to Nick Sonic about this before. Like, we all have the same mission, right? We want to help painting contractors grow their business and be as successful as possible. And so it's really cool to kind of be, in that same mentality with you. We do different things for them, but at the end of the day, that's our goal, right? So I really do appreciate people like yourself and others in the industry that are on that same mission.
Oh, appreciate that, Chris. You have to reach out to him. Worst case scenario, you learn more about your business and kind of what direction you need to go. And I can tell you there's not going to be a hard sell from Chris and his team. So don't hesitate there. And you can always tag him in the Facebook group as well, and he'll answer in there.
Absolutely.
All right, Chris, appreciate your time, brother. Thank you for this.
Thanks for having me, Brady. I appreciate it, man. Look forward to having you on our podcast soon.
I'm excited, brother. Thanks, man.
See ya.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.